It all started on what should have been an ordinary afternoon. 13-year-old Maya, a bright and spirited girl, was walking home from school in her small town. But things took a dark turn when she crossed paths with a police officer whose actions shocked the entire community. In a moment that left Maya terrified and in pain, the officer's cruel behavior went far beyond the line, leaving her with more than just physical scars. What he didn't know, however, was that Maya's father wasn't just an average man. Behind his calm exterior was a powerful billionaire who would stop at nothing to ensure justice for his daughter. As the story unfolds, you'll see how one act of cruelty set off a chain of events that no one saw coming. But what exactly does revenge look like when the odds are this uneven? Stay tuned to find out. Maya's father, Malcolm, was no stranger to adversity. Growing up in a tough neighborhood, he had worked tirelessly to build his empire from the ground up. As a self-made billionaire, he valued fairness and had always taught Maya to stand tall in the face of challenges. But this was beyond anything he had imagined. When Maya came home shaken, her voice trembling as she recounted what had happened, Malcolm felt a mix of heartbreak and fury. How could someone sworn to protect the community to do something so vile to an innocent child? He immediately vowed to get to the bottom of it. The more he dug into the officer's background, the darker the picture became. But Malcolm wasn't one to act impulsively. He began putting a plan in motion, a plan to not only hold the officer accountable, but to make sure no one else would ever face this kind of treatment again. As Malcolm started to investigate, he uncovered more than he had anticipated. The officer, identified as Deputy Harris, had a troubling record that had been buried under layers of bureaucracy. Complaints of misconduct, intimidation, and abuse of power were all there, yet somehow he remained on duty. Malcolm couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about one bad cop, it was a symptom of something much larger. The deeper he looked, the more corruption he uncovered, and the angrier he became. Meanwhile, Maya struggled to process what had happened. Her once bright demeanor dimmed, and she started to withdraw from the things she loved. Malcolm's heart broke watching his daughter's confidence waver, but he knew he couldn't let this define her. Quietly, he began reaching out to influential allies, activists, lawyers, and journalists, each of them determined to shine a light on this injustice. But someone was watching Malcolm's every move, and they weren't happy about it. As Malcolm's plan began to take shape, the pressure around him grew. The media started catching wind of the story, with headlines asking hard questions about accountability and justice. People in the community rallied behind Maya, their support giving her a glimmer of hope. But behind closed doors, Malcolm's fight was far from easy. Powerful figures tied to Deputy Harris tried to silence him, threatening his reputation, his businesses, and even his family. Malcolm refused to back down, but the stakes were getting higher with every step he took. One night, while reviewing the evidence he had collected, Malcolm received a cryptic message warning him to stop digging. It was clear that whoever was protecting Harris didn't plan to let the truth come out. But Malcolm had no intention of stopping. With each threat, his resolve grew stronger. He wasn't just fighting for Maya anymore, he was fighting for everyone who had been silenced. Then, just as he was preparing to take his next big step, an unexpected twist changed everything. Of course, here's a continuation that introduces a second plot twist, escalates the conflict, and maintains suspense while following your guidelines. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the room, shattering the tense silence. Maria froze, her breath hitching as she turned toward the source. The window, intact just moments ago, was now a jagged frame letting in the chill of the night air. A faint rustling followed, too deliberate to be the wind. Someone was here. Leo motioned for silence, pressing his finger to his lips as he reached for the fireplace poker. He crept toward the window, every step deliberate. Maria's heart pounded as her eyes darted between the shadows, the dark corners of the room suddenly alive with possibilities. "I thought we covered our tracks," Maria whispered, her voice trembling. "So did I," Leo murmured back, his grip tightening on the makeshift weapon. Before they could take another step, a voice crackled from the far corner of the room. It was distorted, robotic, a voice they had only ever heard through encrypted messages. "You think you can run?" it said, cold and sharp like the edge of a blade. Maria and Leo spun around, their eyes locking onto a small device perched on the shelf. It wasn't theirs. The blinking red light was unmistakable. It was a transmitter, broadcasting their location. "How long has that been there?" Maria's voice wavered, panic seeping into her words. "I don't know. It wasn't here yesterday." Leah's mind raced, piecing together the implications. Someone had been watching them, listening to them, waiting for the right moment. The voice returned, more human now, but no less menacing. "You took something that doesn't belong to you, Maria, and you dragged him into this too. Tusk, that's not like you." Maria's blood ran cold. The voice was familiar, intimately so. A voice she hadn't heard in years. No, it can't be. Leah's confusion morphed into alarm as he watched the color drain from her face. "Who is it?" She swallowed hard, her mind spiraling back to a name she thought she'd buried long ago. "Ethan." Leah's eyes narrowed. "Ethan, the one you—" "Yes," she cut him off, the weight of the name suffocating her. "He's supposed to be dead." "Well, clearly, I'm not," the voice taunted. "And now you've got something I want." Before Maria could respond, the front door burst open, splintering under the force of a heavy boot. 3 figures in tactical gear stormed in, their faces obscured by helmets and masks. "Run!" Leo shouted, swinging the poker wildly as the intruders advanced. Maria grabbed the satchel on the table, the one that held the stolen drive, and bolted toward the back door. She could hear the chaos behind her, the grunts, the crashes, Leo shouting her name. As she stumbled out into the alley, the icy wind bit at her skin, but she didn't stop. Her mind was a storm of questions. Ethan, how was he alive? And why now, after all these years? The faint sound of footsteps echoed behind her, growing louder. She turned a corner, her chest heaving, her legs burning. But then, in the distance, she saw them, a second group of figures blocking her path. "Trapped." "Give it up, Maria." Ethan's voice came again, this time from a small speaker clipped to one of the masked figures. "You're out of options." Maria's hand tightened around the satchel strap. She wasn't ready to surrender, not yet. Not when she had come this far. But as the masked figures closed in, she realized the stakes were far higher than she'd ever anticipated. They didn't just want the drive. They wanted her. And she had a feeling Ethan's reasons were far more personal than professional. For the first time, Maria began to doubt whether she could outmaneuver them, or if she would even live long enough to try. Maria's breath came in ragged gasps as she backed into the shadow of a crumbling brick wall. The alley felt suffocating, the walls closing in as the figures approached. She tightened her grip. "I'll hold them off," he said firmly, grabbing a piece of pike from the floor. "No," Maria grabbed his arm, her eyes pleading. "We'll figure it out together. Please." But before he could respond, the door splintered open, and the masked figures poured in. Chaos erupted. Maria ducked behind an overturned desk as Leo charged at the intruders, swinging the pipe with a desperation born of love and determination. The satchel was still strapped to her, but she knew she couldn't keep running. Not like this. And then she saw it, the laptop, half buried under a pile of debris. A spark of hope ignited in her chest. She pulled it out, her fingers trembling as she powered it on. The drive had to go public. It was the only way to end this. As the room descended into chaos, Maria connected the drive and began the upload. Ethan's voice crackled to life again, this time from the corner of the room. "You think uploading that will save you?" Maria turned, her blood freezing. Ethan was there in the flesh, standing amidst the chaos like he owned it. His face was older, harder, but his eyes still held that calculating glint she remembered all too well. "I don't need saving," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her. Ethan smiled, a cold, cruel thing. Always a fighter. But you're too late. Even if you upload it, you'll never escape. Maria met his gaze, her hand hovering over the keyboard. Maybe not, but it's not about me. With a final press of the key, the upload completed. A confirmation message flashed on the screen. The evidence was out there now, unstoppable. Ethan's smile faltered, his confidence cracking for the first time. You don't know what you've done. But before he could react, a sudden explosion rocked the building. The sound was deafening, the force throwing everyone to the ground. Smoke filled the room, and Maria coughed, struggling to see through the haze. When the dust settled, Ethan was gone, the masked figures scattered. Leah stumbled to the side, bloodied but alive. What just happened? Maria shook her